Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I have something super exciting to announce. We're some of the first people to know about a really exciting new project that is coming from the most amazing and wonderful friend of the show, Graham McNeill. Welcome, Graham.
Hey, Mira, good to be back again, and thank you again for giving us this opportunity to chat about our new project.
Well, how could I resist when I learned that you were working on something along the lines of Vikings versus demons? And not only that, it's going to be an amazing comic called Wolves of Winter. How could I resist? I'm going to scoop out your brain and you're going to tell us everything about it.
It's great. Love
I have been lucky enough to read the script. It's absolutely wowie zowie, amazing, bonkers, everything you would expect from Graham McNeill and more on an epic scale, thinking about Beowulf saga style epic. So, Graham, please tell me a little bit about how this project started. And one of the questions on my mind is what made you decide to go graphic novel this time as well?
Well, I've loved writing comics ever since I did some for Boom Studios for Warhammer K, and I did the big graphic novel that preceded the Warhammer Age of Reckoning game, and I did a whole bunch of comics at Riot as well, and they were it's just a really fun medium to write because you get to tell the story through a visual medium, which is a very different way of telling a novel or a short story or an audio drama. So, it was one of these, it was a medium that I'd always wanted to flex into. And, having done it a bunch of times over the years, I was like, yeah, this is great. And I always had in mind this idea of the story of like Vikings versus demons. It just felt like a cool mix of interesting archetypes to blend together. So this story it's been living in my head for a long time, and I'd envisaged it at one point. Is this a film? Could I write this as a film, or is it a novel? But the subject matter of it really lent itself to the visuals of what this would look like, and in all its glorious living color. So that's when I made the call. Because a lot of stories you have to figure out what is it, how will this best tell the story? And this one I felt that a graphic novel was definitely the way to go for this because it would allow us the space to tell it, and it's a very visual story. There's lots of cool moments that I think will breathe better into the reader's, emotional,
Mm,
heartland to be devastated by if it's in visuals and color.
yeah.
So that's where it came from. Why a graphic novel? Because I'd always wanted to do one, and this is a chunky graphic novel. It's going to be give or take around about 250 pages. So it's a big meaty project that people I think are going to really dig.
I was really excited when I heard that it was about Vikings because when we've been talking about things like Mechanicum, which is over
Mm.
by Will Wheaton today, you had mapped out the whole of Mars and worked out these legends, and then all the other books that we've talked about. Your research goes so deep. So I was thinking, oh my God, Graham McNeill and Vikings. I knew that you would be like looking into that. And actually, the comic feels really legendary and epic in its own right. Like once the comic
Yeah.
arrives, I think it's going to be one of those things that becomes cultural history. And everyone's going to refer back to, oh yeah, it's the Wolves of Winter. Tell me about what you love about Vikings.
I mean, what's not to love about them? I mean, we all, as we grow up, we have our dinosaur phase, our Viking phase, our
Yeah.
Transformers phase, whatever, and sometimes we leave them behind. And like most, people who are like me or Gus, we never really leave them behind. They come with us. So I've always just loved that kind of the idea of the raiders coming from the sea, the terror that they engender when they arrive. I mean, literally, they are the epic archetypal story characters and locations. The idea of these horn-helmed guys, although obviously they did wear horned helms, but the image of the Viking is so indelibly etched in all of our minds. We know it's one of these words that you say it and it unlocks whole worlds of meaning that the long ship, the raids, the swords, the axes, Thor, Loki, all these something. These are all evoked by
Mm.
just that one word. So it's just one of these things that's never left me. And every time I watch like either Vikings, the show with Travis Fimmel and so on, or The Northman, that one was a great one because
Oh,
I just loved how that went deep into that messy, bloody, pagan violent roots of it to really show that these guys were hardcore. And Vikings have always appealed to me. And, as anyone who's read any of my Warhammer work knows, demons are also pretty close to my heart. Um, and
Absolutely.
given the origin, without spoiling anything, but given the origin of these demons in this book, again, it strikes kind of close to home as to the mythology that I grew up reading, the kind of gods and creatures and monsters that, I read books about as a kid growing up and so on. So it's just one of these things. I have these two real passions rolling around in my head, and sometimes they bump into each other and say, that would be interesting. How would that be? What would that mean? How would I mix this passion with that passion? And is there a way to do it that feels exciting and combined in a way that maybe we haven't seen before? And I felt this was a story that worked well with both those kind of mythologies, both those archetypes, and it would make something interesting when they clashed. And I think we've crafted a story that does both of those things.
I agree. I really loved the way that you wrote it. We get a little bit of slice of life of how they live, how they go and raid, but also the family units and
Mm.
the relationships. So, I mean, now I know you, Graham. I was like, oh God, don't get too attached. I mean, I was amazed as usual, the amount of kind of like violence, building up and kind of almost all out epic battles going on. But at the same time, you're rooting for these characters and they have relationships that are very complicated as well. How do you play epic, demonic, and magic stuff going on here too? I mean, I'm guessing you're trying to think about panels and how you're going
Yeah,
to.
when you're writing it, yes, you're imagining how it fits on the page. I mean, there's a discipline to planning out where your page turns are, where your reveals are, where your and you tailor it to fit the way people read comics as much, the way the eye goes to a certain point
Yeah,
of a page as you turn it. So you don't want your reveals spoiled before you get there and all sorts of stuff like that. But in terms of, I mean, I love that you picked up on that idea of it's that marriage of the epic and the deeply personal.
yeah,
We have stories that are they're high stakes stories, as it turns out. A lot rests upon whether our heroes succeed or fail in this story. But it's also deeply rooted in that there's personal issues at play between the characters that we all can relate to. And it's like, I remember hearing Cargill, screenwriter, talking about horror movies. And he was talking about how a horror movie, the setup for it, the family dynamic or whatever is at the beginning of the movie before the monsters arrive, that dynamic should be interesting and dramatic enough to carry a movie, even if the monsters didn't arrive. So whatever dynamics are in play need
yeah.
to still be dramatic. And then they're only intensified by
Mm.
the arrival of the demon, the ghost, the serial killer, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I was so hooked in by the kind of family relationships, the rivalry relationships, that you've got some really cool characters going on in there. The Valkyrie sisters, I just thought were great. They were like, we're not rowing, like they're very, very feisty fighters. I love that you managed to have a kind of nerd Viking, Grammaticus. I was like, yes. And I was really worried. The minute we had like, in Warhammer terms, a remembrancer, I was like, well, come on,
That's the Horus Heresy coming out, and you there like, oh, it doesn't end well for them.
exactly. I'm terrified for any librarian now, but I loved Grammaticus and also the dynamic between Vikings not necessarily interested in books and reading. So he's kind of scuttled off to the library. Um, I mean, I'm wondering, knowing that this is a comic, are you having characters in mind? So this could be a continuation, or will this be like Wolves of Winter?
Done and dust. The way things often go when I'm writing, when I start out, I think this is a one and done. But then as I go through the story and I fall in love with the characters and start to feel their plight, and I'm hoping they triumph, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is in your hands, whether they do or not. Um, the more I write of them, the more I'm like, yeah, I'd love to see more of these. And the way it finishes, there's certainly absolutely avenues that could be continued. There's characters who I'd love to see. Well, how did they get to that space? Like, there's a character, Egil Wolf Wanderer,
Oh, yes.
and
Echo
I
Wanderer. What a great name as well.
just want to see where, because the way he comes into the story, there's clearly a history between him and Gudrod, the Viking
Yeah.
main character. Where did they go? How did they meet? Why did he go off on his quest and come back
Yeah.
at this point and so on? The lost years.
I mean, in my head, he was Viggo Mortensen when he turned up. Just saying. It was like,
See that? These rakishly handsome swashbuckler chasing the end of the world.
yeah, very cool. And I love that characters turning up. And not only that, but characters coming in and out. And they immediately had these relationships with other people.
Mm.
So some characters would come in and would represent, oh my God, you're a savior. Other other people would recognize that same character and be like, what the hell are you doing with that character?
Yeah, because some of the characters, like Gudrun himself, Alfield, and Olaf, I mean, they're, when I say real characters, you've got to put a little bit of a quotation around them because, like, Gudrun himself was set semi-based on Gudrun the Hunter, the Magnificent, depending which translation you read. But he was a Viking king around the early ninth century, and I mean, there's some debate as to how real he actually was, or whether he was an amalgam of other chieftains and kings at the time. Rumored, he was the father of Halfdan the Black and so on. His wife and child, Olaf, they existed. So we
Wow.
think, but we're not sure. But some of the stories of his adventures, they don't play out in this story, but they informed who he was as a character that we see in this story. When I was chatting to my editor about this when we went through all the edits and rewrites and so on, both of us were like, I don't think this is the end actually here. I think there's definitely more we could do with these characters, and there's some of the way people change by the end of it, and the roles they take on or do
Mm.
not, or turn away from at the end. Definitely, I think offers up a lot of possibilities for going on. But yeah, there's a lot to be done with it. I mean, in the initial story wise of it, I don't want to get into like spoiler territory, but essentially, we're looking at, this is Gudrun the Hunter, this Viking king who's, he's not an old man at all, but he's getting to the point where I should probably be more of a king than a raider at this point. But the urge to raid is still strong in him, and he still loves the whole sailing the seas and reaving the high coasts of foreign lands. But, he has a wife at home. He has a son that needs raising at home. And those two competing impulses are partly what drives Gudrun near the beginning of it
Mm.
until something terrible happens to a loved one of his that forces his hand to doing what he knows he shouldn't be doing, but he has to do it anyway. And that's kind of the crux of the theme of the story is like, you shouldn't be doing this, but you have to. And what does that mean for you and everybody around you? Because, the price that's going to be paid for taking this choice isn't just going to be paid by him.
Yeah, Gudrun is a good hero for the story, and I love the unit. There are three of them as a family, all kind of pulling against each other, needing different things. I thought it worked really well. I used to read a lot more comics before I got stuck in bloody Warhammer world, and I'm sure this is because you are the writer that you are. But if all you built a whole world as usual. Yes, it's reference to history, but I can see this universe becoming games could be played across it. It could be a movie, I think, the comic book, it could be a movie. So it's for me, it was like I was very excited to read some of your new work because I'm a fan of your work, but then when I read the comic, I wasn't expecting it to feel so realized and real, like one of your novel stories. The characters do grow and change. I'm always trying to get inside writers' brains. The magic of how do you're not going to have the answer to this, but the pie chart of planning in these human moments. So I'm so caught up in the story and the scary things happening and the epic moments. I'm at a point where I'm like, hang on a minute, I love these characters. I know so much about them, and I hadn't even realized you were feeding it to us. How do you work that out in the pie chart of, is there a method like, I know I'm going to need this many action sequences, but I also need to keep the readers caring about these characters. And I know I'm going to have to get rid of some of these characters. Yeah, I know that's a terrible question to ask because it's probably just innate to your writing, but could
It's
you?
something you do on any project, whether it's a feature film, a TV episode, a novel, a comic, whatever. I mean, you've got to establish the ordinary world. You've got to establish the characters in it and get your readers to care about them. And then you just hit them with hammers repeatedly until the end. But, you layer in, I mean, exposition and layering in the things you want people to remember or care about is, yeah, it's tricky, and it usually takes a number of iterations to get it right, because often it can either be too heavy-handed that you spot it a mile away, or it's pushed so far back into the subtext that nobody got it, which is, why having an editor is very, very helpful, because they at it from most times they'll have read the outline for something before they get it, but my editor in this case did not. He read the thing as, I'd finished the thing. He was reading it from the point of view of not knowing what was coming next and so on. So he got to experience it like a reader, who buys the comic book or backs the comic book on Kickstarter will get. So he was able to give me a really good perspective on that. Feels too obvious. I didn't get that at all from this. So, we dial the volume up on some bits, you dial it down on others, just to make sure it feels like you're delivering exposition or Chekhov's guns in a way that feels organic to the story without hanging a big neon sign on it saying,
Yeah.
this is important, remember this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with a comic, you can literally do that. The way you frame a panel, the way you use close-ups or color, you can literally hang a sign on a thing to say, you direct the reader's eye to things that you want them to see, that you want them to take. That's an important thing,
Yeah.
or that establishes the geography of a location so you understand how the characters are moving through it, because this is obviously, it's not a moving picture. Each panel is a snapshot. You're carefully choosing what the reader sees on it. And
Yeah.
our artist in this, Ricardo Jamie, amazing the work he's doing. And he's, we said to him, like, you trust your gut. We've outlined the page and the panels and so on. If you think of a better way to do it, a more exciting, flowy way to do it that enhances what this page needs to do, knock yourself out, go do it. And
Yeah.
he's already come back with a number of pages that have, oh wow, I did not think of that. That's really
Yeah.
cool. I get the motion of this now that I didn't before. So, having that sort of the trust between you and your editor, you and your artist, your
Yeah.
colorist and your letterer is great, because every piece of that puzzle works on the panel. And if it's not right, it jars.
Mm.
And like I say, we've got a murderer's row of talent,
Yeah.
working in this beyond the words.
So basically you're kind of show running this comic book and you've got to pick all these amazing people to work with you. So can you tell us, how did you pick which editor you're going to work with? Obviously, as an editor myself, it helps to know these
Mhm.
qualities. How did you find your artist? How did you get your lineup together? And
It's
was it like one of your heist stories where you're like getting the band together?
It literally was. It was Avengers Assemble, essentially. I was very lucky. My editor and I met through a mutual friend, and we were pitching a comic series to another company, and they didn't go for it, unfortunately. We knew it was a long shot anyway, but we thought, let's take the Hail Mary, because why not? Because sometimes they come off, but that one didn't land. But it got us talking, and preparing our pitches for this other project. You just kind of sensed a vibe that was like, I really like working with you. You've got very similar wells from which we draw our inspiration and things that we love about comics, about storytelling, about the visual medium. When we came off one of the calls, I emailed them back and said, like, hey, I know this one didn't go, but I've got this other story that I think would work really, really well as a graphic novel. I don't know if you guys, would want to do something with it. I mean, the company they work for, they don't tend to do creator-owned stories, but he's like, hey, if you wanted to, maybe we go down the Kickstarter route. So that was like, light bulb moment, and he and I just started brainstorming
Yay.
ideas and artists and colorists and so on. And because he works he's worked in comics for like 20 years now, he's got
Yeah.
connections all over the place. So we just put our dream team wish list of artists that we knew or that we would like, styles we liked, and so on. And that naturally suggested, 10 names, give or take. And we went down the list and thought, well, who would stylistically be awesome for this? The name at the top of our list was Ricardo Jamie, because like Robert's worked with him on a God Slap, before, and his work was great. And Robert sent me a bunch of his comics. And I was like, yes, this, again, I've seen a bunch of stuff online, but seeing it in all the Godslap comics, like his layout, his pen work, and so on, I was like, yeah, this guy's great. So, we contacted Ricardo, and fortunately, he was available. So we snatched him up and said, okay, we're 250-page comic. It's going to take you a while, but assuming if we get funded, then it'll be we can pay you for like a year to work on
Yeah.
this. So he was like, "Yeah, I'm up for it," and he read the story and really liked it. And then from there, again, it was the same process. What tonal palette are we playing in here? Because the way I described it was kind of like Rings of the Dragon or House of Power. It was kind of not quite
Oh,
as flat, not quite as golden and colorful as Rings of Power, and not quite as dark and gritty and horrid as House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones. It was somewhere
yeah.
in the middle. So there's color and life to it, but a real grit and texture as well. So again, that made our colorist choice. We've got Vittorio Astone working on that. And
Wow.
then for the letters, we got Dave Sharp, who's worked on like everything, Batman, Suicide Squad, tons and tons of
All the
comics.
things.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it's a real murderer's row of talent, and some of the work we've seen so far is like this is going to be awesome. This is going to look really great.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to get a sneak peek of some of the character art, and I'm very, very, very excited. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be brilliant. And also, Graham, you have like a bunch of fans who love your writing already. So I know you from Warhammer, but also
Mm.
you had an episode of Arcane, which has won an award recently.
Yeah, it's just said that season two won the Emmy for best animated series,
Emmy
which was
Award. Love
awesome.
it. New York Times best-selling, Emmy Award winning Graham McNeill. So is this the first Kickstarter that you've done that's
It
been
is. It is, yes.
exciting?
And it's a lot of work. I mean, I know a few people who've run them, and they've all said, "Oh, it's an immense amount of work." And I thought,
Yeah.
really? I mean, it should be fairly easy. We'll just put no, 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 no. It is a ton of work figuring out when you're going to do it, what's it going to be, what's your funding goal, what your tier's going to be, how can you time this right, and especially with a lot of the printing work that used to be done like, overseas, with America being the way it is right now, and
Yeah.
it's that tariffs and stuff could add a lot to the price. So we're like, no, actually, we're going to print most of it in North America to avoid all that, because we don't want to pass any of these kind of costs onto our backers. We want to try, keep all of the costs to ourselves. And when whoever backs the project, they just pay for what they are getting. They're not going to
Yeah.
be slapped with another, hidden cost at the end of it.
No, that's wonderful. I think Kickstarter is a great platform.
This is the way we thought. This is a way we can, maintain control of the IP. It's ours. We will get it to the people who really want it,
Yeah.
and we can make the product that we really, really want to make. So
Yay.
I look at this as a huge opportunity for us to do this in a way that we really want to do, and we'll get a big chunky graphic, full color graphic novel to people that is exactly the thing we envisaged.
Yes.
So I look at this as a huge opportunity for for all of us involved in this,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I just if we make some money on it, great. But all I want to do is just make this graphic novel and get it to as many people as we can, because I think it's again, I'm biased. I think it's a cool story, and the art will be great, and I think people will really enjoy it.
I think they will, and I think it's a great opportunity for people who love your work already to come and support you. I occasionally get some really kind people that do a Patreon for me, but
Mm,
with you, they're going to do a Kickstarter and then hold something in their hand that is completely original and amazing
absolutely.
by one of their faves. I was
Well,
saying
yeah.
to Graham earlier, I had my own special party this afternoon, but then I rushed home because I just think this is so exciting. And I think the fact that you're going to get to do it independently, no doubt in my mind, it's going to be like fully funded and then some.
I hope so. And I think all the people who have come with me so far on the journey of the stories that we've told, I think they will really, if you're a Warhammer fan, you're gonna dig this.
Yeah.
If you're not a Warhammer fan, you'll still dig it.
We know all those bloody Wolves fans are going to be straight up the on the
I think they'll see some. They'll definitely have something they like in there.
all those Emperor's Children fans are going to be like rushing down, yeah, battening down the hat. Well, not, but no, the other one,
The
battering
other one,
down the
opening up
doors.
the hatches.
Yeah, open the hatches. So hopefully we're going to upload this video today on a very special day. Today will be the first day that you can sign up to hear about this project and be the first among anyone to know about it.
Absolutely. Is that, we're going to make sure that, the video goes the same day as the launch page, so you can sign up to be notified when we go live in November. And I really hope you'll join us in this because it's an exciting story. It's got amazing art. Colors are leaping off the page, and it's just a cool story. And I think anyone who's ever read anything of me that they've even vaguely liked, they will love this.
Yeah. I did also say to Graham earlier, I've seen a lot of Graham's new writing, and I did say, Graham, I think you're going through a crazy geyser of creativity. Just, words are flowing out and they're fantastic. So,
Yes, I've been, it's been a strange few months of late, but the upside of that is it has afforded me some great opportunities to just go nuts with different projects on different places and just really go to town on the kinds of stories and the kind of places I'm telling them and the kind of ways that I'm very fortunate to be allowed to tell them. I'm feeling very fortunate these days at what I'm able to do and where I'm able to do it.
yeah. Well, I think we're getting peak McNeill creativity era. I'm seeing a lot of this at the moment. I don't know if it's this changing of the seasons or situations, but some of my favorites are like just everything is synchronized and everything's come together and then beautiful stories are coming out. So I am going to do my service to the Kickstarter, and underneath this video, you're going to find a link to take you straight to the Kickstarter sign up page. So I need everyone to go and do it. And yeah, I have read it. Regular viewers of my channel should trust me now. I generally like most things, but this is, I think, really fab. I think it's going to be explosive and adored when it's out there. Run, don't walk, and press the button below. And Graham, you're going to come back and chat to me about our normal Warhammer scheduled. We need
I
to
am indeed.
we need to figure out a plan of how to talk publicly about Reflection Cracked. And
We'll have to have like set certain safe words in place.
yeah, I'm going to put loads and loads of foundation on because I blush quite a lot. And yeah, fascinating.
Well, don't worry. I'll just wear my gimp mask and we'll be fine.
Hooray! I shall bring my whips and chains. That'll be fine. You will talk about Lord of the Lance as well. Graham, thank you so much for letting
No,
me see it first and share it on my channel.
pleasure. Oh,
Wonderful.
again, thanks for helping and share and spread the word. It's more appreciated than you can know.
Anytime, anytime. Thank you so much, Graham.
Thank you, Mira. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.